Good Friday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for November the 17th. Today we are reading together in Second Chronicles chapter 28. We're going to get the chronicler's version of the reign of Ahaz. The chronicler's version of the reign of Ahaz, the son of Jotham. Jotham, for what was mentioned about him, seems to be pretty good. Most of the things that he did seem to be certainly better than what came before him with his father Uzziah. And then we're going to see, is Ahaz going to continue the pattern of good behavior before Yahweh, or is it going to be some poor behavior? Well, let's notice that here in Second Chronicles 28. See if we can remember what exactly is going to take place in this particular chapter of the Kings of Judah. Let me get that text up on the screen for us, and we'll read along together here. Second Chronicles 28 and verse number 1. Ahaz was 20 years old when he became king, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. He did not do what was right in Yahweh's sight, like his ancestor David, for he walked in the ways of the kings of Israel. Ooh, that's not good. And made cast images of the Baals. He burned incense in Ben Hinnom Valley and burned his children in the fire, imitating the detestable practices of the nations Yahweh had dispossessed before the Israelites. He sacrificed and burned incense on high places, on the hills, and under every green tree. So Yahweh, his God, handed Ahaz over to the king of Aram. He attacked him and took many captives to Damascus. Ahaz was also handed over to the king of Israel, who struck him with great force. Pekah, son of Remaliah, killed 120,000 in Judah in one day, all brave men, because they had abandoned Yahweh, God of their ancestors. An Ephraimite warrior named Zikri killed the king's son Maaseiah, Azrikam, governor of the palace, and Elkanah, who was second to the king. Then the Israelites took 200,000 captives from their brothers, women, sons, and daughters. They also took a great deal of plunder from them and brought it to Samaria. The prophet of Yahweh named Oded was there. He went out to meet the army that came to Samaria and said to them, "Look, Yahweh, God of your ancestors, handed them over to you because of his wrath against Judah. But you slaughtered them in a rage that has reached heaven." So this is the prophet speaking to the army of Israel concerning what they've just done against Judah. Verse 10, now you plan, 2 Chronicles 28, verse number 10, now you plan to reduce the people of Judah and Jerusalem, male and female, to slavery. Are you not also guilty before Yahweh your God? Listen to me and return the captives you took from your brothers, for Yahweh's burning anger is on you. So some men who were leaders from the Ephraimites, Azariah, son of Jehohanan, Berechiah, son of Meshilemoth, and Jehizikiah, son of Shallum, and Amasa, son of Hadlai, stood in opposition to those coming from the war. They said to them, "You must not bring the captives here, for you plan to bring guilt on us from Yahweh to add to our sins and our guilt. For we have much guilt, and burning anger is on Israel." The army left the captives and the plunder in the presence of the officers and the congregation. Then the men who were designated by name took charge of the captives and provided clothes for their naked ones from the plunder. They clothed them, gave them sandals, food, and drink, dressed their wounds, and provided donkeys for all the feeble. The Israelites brought them to Jericho, the city of palms, among their brothers. Then they returned to Samaria. So the Israelites returned to their land. At that time, King Ahaz asked the king of Assyria for help. The Edomites came again, attacked Judah, and took captives. The Philistines also raided the cities of the Judean foothills and the Negev of Judah. They captured and occupied Beth Shemesh, Aijalon, and Gederoth, as well as Soko, Timnah, and Gimzo with their surrounding villages. For Yahweh humbled Judah because of King Ahaz of Judah, who threw off restraint in Judah and was unfaithful to Yahweh. Then King Tiglath-Pileser of Assyria came against Ahaz. He oppressed him and did not give him support, although Ahaz plundered Yahweh's temple and the palace of the king and of the rulers, and gave the plunder to the king of Assyria. It did not help at all. At the time of his distress, King Ahaz himself became more unfaithful to Yahweh. He sacrificed to the gods of Damascus, which had defeated him. He said, well, since the gods of the kings of Aram are helping them, I will sacrifice to them so they will help me. But they were the downfall of him and all Israel. Then Ahaz gathered up the utensils of God's temple, cut them into pieces, shut the door of Yahweh's temple, and made himself altars on every street corner in Jerusalem. He made high places in every city of Judah to offer incense to other gods, and he angered Yahweh, the God of his ancestors. As for the rest of the deeds and all his ways, from beginning to end, they are written in the book of the kings of Judah and Israel. Ahaz rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city in Jerusalem, but they did not bring him into the tombs of the kings of Israel. His son Hezekiah became king in his place. And that is 2 Chronicles chapter 28. Well, not very good. It seems the reality is that Jotham ended up being the good sandwich in between two pretty bad kings, being his father and then his son. Ahaz was 20 years old whenever he became king, and we're given, as is the normal pattern within Kings and Chronicles, a brief description of a brief summation, I guess would be best way to say it, of his reign. And his reign is described as he did not do what was right in Yahweh's sight, like his ancestor David. Okay, so that's one thing. But then just more and more is added on to it. He walked in the ways of the kings of Israel. So not only was he not like David, he went so far as to be like the kings of Israel. Well, what did he do with that? Well, he introduced paganism. He also burned incense in the Ben Hinnom Valley. He killed his own children in human sacrifice, and he in doing so, he imitated the detestable practices of the nations that Yahweh had expelled from the land. He sacrificed and burned incense on the high places, on the hills, and under every green tree. So basically, in every way in which Ahaz could have done what was evil, well, he did what was evil. And Yahweh obviously took notice of this, and he handed over Ahaz, well, to a number of enemies. We'll just say, first of all, to the king of Aram, then King Pekah of Israel, and then the Edomites, and then the Philistines, and then the king of Assyria. So 5, that's like that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different enemies were able to overcome Ahaz because of his wickedness. Now, in using these other nations, we recognize that what is happening here is that God is allowing these other nations to have victory over Ahaz and the people of Judah because of their sin. Again, this all gets back to the covenant curses and the covenant promises. If the people are faithful to the covenant, they'll receive blessings. If they're not faithful to the covenant, they're going to receive cursings. And right now they're receiving cursings upon cursings for their immense wickedness. Again, it starts with the king of Aram. He attacks Judah, takes captives back with him. Next, the Israelites, the northern tribes of Israel, come up against Judah, and there's a great slaughter there as well. And again, we're noted very clearly in verse number 6 that it's because they abandoned Yahweh, God of their ancestors. Many are killed. Ahaz's son is killed. A governor is killed. His second in command is killed. Many people, women, sons, daughters, much plunder are taken from Judah and brought to Samaria. Now, God will use other nations to bring punishment against people, but that doesn't mean they just do anything they want to. We probably remember previously, I cannot think right off the top of my head right now who exactly it was, but there was a nation that was used to punish God's people, and yet they took it too far. And because they took it too far, God ends up coming down on them and with punishment. And that's the same thing that happens here. Yes, they were to give a defeat to Judah, but especially being the brothers of Judah, being Jewish people themselves, they should not have been taking people captive. And that was, in God's eyes, a step too far, which is why he sends the prophet Oded to go and to speak with them. And there are even some people who were belonging to the leaders belonging to Israel that recognized this was a step too far. So they end up stepping in and causing the slavery and the detention of the Judahites. They end up stopping this. They end up caring for them in verses 14 and 15. They take charge of the captives. They provide clothes. They provide food. They provide drink and dressing of wounds and transportation for those who are feeble. And they end up taking those back to Jericho, so that further wrath is not brought down upon Israel for, again, taking this a step too far. But during that time, King Ahaz feels like it's him against the world. So again, instead of looking to Yahweh, he looks to a pagan king. He looks to the king of Assyria. And that's a bad move, because once the Edomites come and once the Philistines come, they're both able to attack Judah. They're both able to take captives, and there's nothing that Ahaz is able to do. And again, verse 19, for Yahweh humbled Judah because of King Ahaz, who threw off restraint in Judah and was unfaithful to Yahweh. And remember, he's not looking to Yahweh for help. He's looking to the Assyrian king. But even the Assyrian king comes up against Ahaz and oppresses him, does not give him support. Basically, previous to this, we're told at this point in verse number 21 that Ahaz tried to bribe him by plundering the temple, by plundering the treasures of the king's palace and of the rulers. But that didn't go anywhere. Basically, Tiglath-Pileser took what Ahaz gave him and spit in his face and did mean things to him anyways. So again, whenever you try to get involved with wicked people who don't have any sort of moral fortitude, who don't love you and don't have your best in mind like God does, shouldn't be surprised that bad things happen. The text tells us, verse 22, that at the time of his distress, again, instead of looking to Yahweh, what does King Ahaz do? Well, he became even more unfaithful to Yahweh. See, the reality is that moments of distress for us, moments of trial and struggle, those are moments when we should draw ourselves closer to God, where we should long to embrace God all the more to experience the relief and the peace that only he can give. But that's not what Ahaz did. No. He pushed God further away. He was more unfaithful to God. And one of the things that he did is he actually goes and begins sacrificing to the gods of Damascus and Aram. He's thinking, well, they just beat us, so they must have the stronger gods. So we're gonna start worshiping them instead, which is the exact opposite of let's see here, the exact opposite of Amaziah. Remember, Amaziah fought against the Edomites and the Syrites and ends up taking and it has a victory, but ends up taking their gods and worships them, which that's silly and stupid, because why would you worship the loser gods? But here, Ahaz goes after the gods that defeated him and his God, which that's just not true. He's not recognizing that it's not the power of these gods that caused them to rebel, but it's the fact that his all-powerful God, who is completely sovereign and completely in control, has allowed this to take place. So he seeks after everything else but God. And whenever that doesn't work, well, then he just gets mad in verse 24 and starts acting almost angry toward God, gathering up the utensils of the temple, cutting them all into pieces, shutting the doors to Yahweh's temple, making altars for himself on every corner street of Jerusalem. Oh, Ahaz he can't get out of his own way, is the reality of his sad situation. So again, in his moment of distress, instead of looking to God, he looked anywhere else but God. And instead of humbling himself before God, he becomes angry with God and lashes out at God and seeks to act as if this is all God's fault. So he's going to disrespect him in this way. Again, there's a lot of lessons for us to learn there. In our moments of trial and distress, what are we going to do? Are we going to long to be closer to God, to draw ourselves closer to him? Or do we want to push him away? Do we want to look to God as our point of relief, or do we want to look anywhere else but to God? Whenever we think about our situation, do we want to blame God for that situation? Ahaz did, again, made the wrong choice in every single way. And what did that leave him with? Well, that left him with a really sad account of his reign. And once he was buried, they did not bring him into the tombs of the kings. Well, why not? Well, because this man was wicked and evil. He deserved no honor in death. Really sad for Ahaz's reign to be what it was. But again, it all gets back to the reality of he did not do what was right in Yahweh's sight like his ancestor David. He did not have, in any way, shape, or form, a heart for God. And because he did not have a heart for God, nothing about who he was longed for God or sought to pursue God in any way. If you have any questions or comments about this text, please feel free to leave that in the comment section below. And I appreciate you taking some time reading along with me today here in 2 Chronicles chapter 28. Tomorrow we're going to read in 2 Chronicles 29. And I have a sneaky suspicion that things are going to be a bit better for us as we read about King Hezekiah. Hope that you'll be able to join in with me for that read tomorrow. Again, have a great rest of your Friday, everybody. Take care and God bless.